Hello and welcome to the Green Collar Careers Podcast. I'm your host, Jose Almanzar, a practicing environmental attorney and former environmental scientist. This podcast is all about exploring careers in sustainability in the environmental field, what they look like, how to get started, and how to grow into them. Each episode, I sit down with professionals who have built meaningful careers in this space to hear their stories, how they got started, the challenges they faced, and the advice I have for anyone looking to break in or level up. Whether you're a student, a career changer, or just passionate about making a difference, these conversations will have something valuable for you. Thank you so much for spending time with us. Let's dive right in. Hello, and welcome back to the Green Collar Careers Podcast, where we explore people, paths, and pivots shaping a meaningful career and climate. Today's guest is Heidi Pan. Heidi, a lot of people maybe don't know this, but before I even started the podcast, I had this crazy idea of doing LinkedIn Live events, and Heidi
Yes.
was Heidi was my very first guest. We had a really great discussion. If I recall, it was about climate anxiety, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yep.
I do remember completely fumbling like the tech stuff. I don't think I've gotten much better since then, but Heidi is at UPenn, and she's also the host of the 1.5 Degrees podcast. Look her up. She interviews people that are in the climate space and kind of gets them to tell their story. A little similar to what we do here on Green Collar Careers, but we take different approaches. Heidi, how are you? How's Pennsylvania treating you?
Pennsylvania's cold at the moment. It's a balmy, let's see what it is here. It's actually pretty balmy. It's 30 degrees.
30
The other
degrees? That's shorts weather.
the other day was 7 degrees.
Yeah.
Just casually, just wonderful.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's great to be here. Good to see you again.
Good to see you too. Were you on campus for that freak snowstorm the Northeast got?
Oh my goodness, yes, I was. It was, you couldn't see in front of you, and you still had to get to class somehow, but
Classes were going on Monday?
I think they might have been. Actually, no, they were not. They
Good.
were canceled, right, yes. Philly have did you see those videos of people, like, sledding down
I
the
heard
down the
Harvard
stairs?
I heard Harvard did not close
Oh,
classes for that day. Yeah, it was, and
oh, no.
students were like, "Yo, you guys dropped the ball on that." Look it up. There's like
Oh,
a whole big like student
oh
backlash
boy,
on it.
I'm not sure how I missed that.
So
Oh, jeez.
I was actually in Pennsylvania that weekend also. I was in the
Uh-huh.
Poconos, so a little bit in the mountains, but we got slammed with 33 inches of snow in the Poconos.
Oh,
Uh,
shoot.
yeah,
Oh my
yeah,
goodness, no kidding.
we wanted to go home Sunday. Obviously, we couldn't, and we
Mm.
ended up leaving Monday at like noon, but it took an incredible feats of shoveling.
Oh, dear. Yeah,
Yeah.
no.
So, Heidi, tell me what's going on with you. What are you studying at UPenn right now?
Yeah, so right now I am intended on majoring in environmental studies. I think I am also going to pursue a minor in the history of art or just art history. Yeah, that's what in this moment, it's just I like to joke that it's double unemployment, but you know what?
If you want to tack on a third one, take a philosophy double major.
Hell yeah, why not? Oh, jeez.
No,
Yeah.
no. Well, listen, I think you're doing something which I think is the right approach to specifically undergrad,
Mm,
which is to take things that substantively interest you. I think too many people go to college with the mindset of, I'm going to go and take a degree that'll help me get a job.
mhm,
And uh, not to get on my soapbox, but I think you're doing college the wrong way if that's what
mhm.
you're going to college for. I think college is for a lot of things. I don't think it's to one, prepare yourself to be a worker, B, it's to expand your mind with things that you're interested in. So I
Mm.
commend you for sticking to what's interesting to you.
Yeah, I appreciate that, and I mean, obviously, it's from a perspective of, I think college like, there are people that go to college with the intent of, being employed after and a
Of
smart way to
course,
get their
of
return of
course,
investment, you know?
of course.
But I think, like, for me, it's different because I'm thinking of going to law school for one, and also because, like, I think unemployment is kind of just probably gonna happen regardless of what I study at this point. I know so many people that have graduated with typically, in previous generations, you get a CS degree or you get a, biology and you go to med school. It's not the same anymore. It's yeah, and I'm sure we're gonna talk about that further later.
It really isn't the same, and it's sobering on the one hand because it's like, damn, we were sold this idea, and maybe your
Mhm.
generation maybe is the first generation that's being kind of, for lack of a better term, kind of just slapped in the face
Yep.
about this. But like, there is no guarantee a career path to just having a degree doesn't guarantee a career.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, this is where grit, resilience, networking comes in. And
Mhm.
then, frankly, side hustle culture is a real thing. People need to find ways to pay rent. And so, to the extent that people can do other things to supplement their income until their career, their vocation takes off, you kind of got to do what you got to do.
Yep. Totally agree.
So, you've been hosting the 1.5 Degrees podcast, I think now for at least over a year, right?
It's we're going on 3 years now. Yeah, I
Yeah.
started when I was 16. It's kinda hard to think about.
I
It's pretty crazy. You were, like, there at the start of that, yeah.
I do remember, and I remember seeing you on LinkedIn and being like, okay, this I think, you know what, it's interesting. I think seeing you start the podcast encouraged me to then start doing it myself. So I want to thank
Oh,
you
shoot.
for, yeah, I really want to thank you for, sometimes you need to see other people doing it and doing it well and just be like, hey, you know what? If she's courageous enough to put herself out there, it kind of gave me permission. So thank you
Mm,
for that. So you've
that's
been going
cool.
on 3 years,
Yes.
and you're usually the one interviewing folks. So now I'm gonna kind of flip the script on you a little bit, but
Yeah.
what's your approach with the 1.5 Degrees podcast? What are you hoping to get out of your guests, and what are your discussions kind of about?
Yeah, 1.5, I guess to take you from the start, it started during my spring break, in my junior year of high school. It was an idea that I had since, like, 8th grade because I've always been, like, concerned about the environment, to say the least, but, in my mind at the time, it was like, you know you can't really be paid to do environmental work. So I thought, like my vision of an environmental activist is somebody that has to skip school to get attention to an issue. But unfortunately I can't afford to skip school. So but I wanted to help, And so I was like, I need to do some research on what careers are out there. And that brought me to LinkedIn and cold emailing and stuff, which, yeah, in hindsight is like, where did this come from? It's hard to say, but I guess like I just haven't stopped since going on 40 something published episodes now and a couple on the way. Yeah.
And in terms of like, what are you hoping to get out of the discussion? Is it just a
Hmm.
platform for people to to give their story, or are you, trying to give an inspiring message or doom and gloom? Like, what are you hoping? And obviously, every conversation takes a little bit of a different spin, but
Mhm.
what's the end game for each episode?
Yeah, it's certainly an important topic. I mean, and yeah, you're right. Every episode kind of takes their own shape. I come into the interview prepared with certain questions, but depending on the dynamic that me and the guest has, we sometimes veer off into the doom and gloom, or we'll veer off into something that's inspiring. Because I think really both of that is involved in this space. If I'm talking to a diverse group of people, there's going to be different perspectives offered. So I guess my answer to that question is I certainly get different things out of the episode, but I think every listener will also get their own different things, like different
Mm.
things will resonate with different listeners. So I think, this podcast started out as a high schooler who wanted to help other high schoolers get to know what climate careers could look like, but then it's come to help, people that are already, 20 years of experience have emailed me saying that this has insights that I did not have before. And, that's amazing to me. Yeah.
So in terms of, as you're early in your career, but certainly
Mhm.
you've been exposed to a lot with, through your
Mhm.
podcast and your speaking engagements that you've done. And certainly I saw something recently that you were interviewed by BBC. So like you're out there, you're putting yourself out there, and you're becoming certainly one of the voices in this space. Where is this leading you towards in terms of your career interests, and what are you thinking about career prospects? I mean, you just started your college career, so you have a few years before you're back out kind of in the quote unquote workforce, but where is this taking you conceptually? Are you thinking you may want to start your own business with kind of environmental and kind of consulting or communications consulting, or are you thinking
Mhm.
you may want to work for a government agency with your, you know, 2 times, I think, NASA internships? And we'll talk about that in a second. Like, where's your head at with respect to career prospects for you?
Yeah, I think you do have a point in the sense that, yeah, I have put myself out there already for a couple of years, and I think the question of like, what do I want to do when I grow up? What do I want to do with my life has always kind of been looming over me. It's what started this podcast in the first place, and my answers have kind of diversified as well as, narrowed down. I think I've definitely come to the conclusion that I feel comfortable with communications areas. I like to tell stories, and I feel like have grown to have a bit of a knack for it because I just like being creative as a person. If not, being like, I want to be an artist when I grow up. Unfortunately, AI has other plans for that. And so I think the the path that I think I thought about in terms of the quote unquote sense of security is, completing my 4-year degree and then applying to law schools and going to law school and seeing what goes from there. But also, I've come to realize, that life is uncertain. No way. Oh my god. Such an insight. Um, uh, things change. Like I had a medical issue my first semester last year.
Hmm.
So I'm doing my freshman year of college all over again. And just
Mhm.
like that kind of experience really, like I spent a year then instead of going to college working minimum wage 3 jobs.
Mhm.
And so, like it gives you a different perspective. Like, on the one hand, it motivated me to land a career where I actually enjoy what I'm doing. But also it was like, if you can't land that, it's okay. You're still gonna make it. And also, like, there are options that are not conventional that are still available to you that you can, work your mind to. Like you mentioned, like consulting or starting a business. Who knows? I might go down the pre-professional pen pipeline of consulting, just to be able to feed myself. Um, or I might start my own business. That's kind of something I'm kind of working on the side in the quiet, in addition to the podcast right now. Yeah.
Well, you definitely have a gift with communications and storytelling, and I'm going to encourage you to lean into that. Not to say that you put other things aside, your interest in law, if that's what you want to pursue afterwards, after your undergrad, certainly. But that I think people have certain talents that are just natural to them, and I'm gonna as a older millennial to a Gen Zer, I'm gonna just encourage you to lean into the things that one that you're not just good at, but also that I think bring you joy. Because you started this, the 1.5 Degrees podcast and all the other things that you do out of joy, not and a sense of obligation. I know that you felt that you wanted to do something, and so that that's a big part of my messaging these days, and it's really more a reminder to myself, which is why I've doubled down on this podcast, why I started a Substack, you know, writing articles and essays encouraging people to lean into their passions,
Mm.
with a tint of environmental and green careers. But you have a thing here with communications and storytelling. I mean, I did check out. I'm not gonna lie. I went to your website and I saw the cat meme that you did for NASA,
Yes, cat memes.
and
I mean,
I
hey.
don't know. I I I was like, I guess I'm now like I have to follow NASA. But now that I mean,
Yeah.
it was brilliant, and I think you're anyway. Just and that's just one example you've of all the things that you've done. Um, I want to ask you, with respect. You mentioned earlier that you've quote unquote always had an interest in the environment and climate. Can you take us back to kind of where maybe that came from?
Yeah. I I don't know why, but my first thought was like I used to love watching Diego more than Dora as a kid. Like I've always loved like, animals and like, creepy crawlies and plants and stuff. Like I was the weird kid outside playing with worms while people were playing house.
Yeah.
And then I realized, oh shit, the worms are dying.
Mm,
Everything that I really love and really appreciate is like, we're in this mass extinction. Right now, as we speak, things are dying and we'll never live on this planet again. And it's
mhm,
devastating. And so, like, while I always was the kid that was like, oh my God, oh no, the polar bears, oh no, reduce, reuse, recycle. Like, we have to conserve. And then I got to high school and met a teacher who was an environmental historian, and she was like, you know, the 3 Rs are actually perpetuated by BP, deep water, like that whole thing. It's there's a larger issue at hand, and you are capable of bringing something to the table and helping others get to the table as well, and so that kind of awakened in me, like, there is something out there that I am capable of doing, even if it's a small, small piece of this larger, puzzle of a solution. I can still do a part. And so, the interest started with small animals, interest in that, and then in the hope of, it could be naive, but in the hope of, helping preserve the greater picture so that other kids in the future can also, enjoy Diego, or just like animals without that fear, can enjoy that in the coming years. Yeah.
yeah, no, and that's very altruistic, and at the same time, it's and don't take this the wrong way. Um, it's like beautifully simplistic.
Mm.
Like you learned about the death and destruction of species, and that in very core way impacted and moved you.
Mm.
Full stop. And that's it. And then from that, it stirred you to then do everything that you've been doing. Unfortunately, and you and I have spoken about this, it
Mhm.
led to something, that now has been coined many times again, climate anxiety.
Yes.
Is this still a thing? Like, are your is this something that's talked about in your circles, or really,
Yeah.
like, do people speak about? Because I'll tell you from, I'm in my 40s.
Mm.
I turned 42 a few, maybe 2 or 3 months ago, and we speak about it, but it's like double dutch. Like we're in
Yes.
it quickly, and then like we can't spend too
Yes.
much time in it.
Mhm.
Like how are your peers? How is this being discussed and handled kind of in your circles?
Mhm. I wanna preface this by saying, like, I think, and I wanna avoid generalization, but I
Of
think, like,
course.
we've all come out of the pandemic,
Mhm.
and the pandemic really affected our mental health. And I think climate anxiety should not be pathologized because it's a natural response to literally the planet burning,
Mhm.
and everything we know and love being under threat. But I guess to answer the question, like, I'm still like, I began not as an environmental activist in terms of like actually activism, if you want to call it that. Um, I began with I began with mental health activism. I began
Mm.
with mental health activism, and so that then mixed with environmental activism, noticing, that people have emotions that are really tied up to this, and they shouldn't be suppressed. They
Mm.
should be, embraced. And honestly, emotions in itself, especially in a day and age where everything's become so, like there's artificial intelligence, there's, a focus on tech instead of communities. And I think more than ever, I think it's important to not just play double dutch with our emotions, but really, acknowledge them.
Mhm.
And, because the more we don't acknowledge our emotions, the more people become disillusioned. They'll drop
Mhm.
off and, go into despair rather than action, and I think in that sense, climate emotions or climate psychology, whatever you want to call it, it's definitely a priority that I'm still making in my life.
That's I'm glad you mentioned that spending too much time in either ignoring those feelings or suppressing them could lead really to despair. And admittedly, I was in that space. I want to say maybe about 2 years ago,
Mhm.
where I felt that I was stuck in a way where I couldn't do enough. Like I really couldn't meaningfully contribute to
Yeah.
the greater good because I was in this role of, I'm a caretaker and I'm also an attorney and the work that I do. And while I love being an environmental attorney, a lot of the work is, corporate support, not necessarily,
Yeah.
objectively good or bad, but
Mhm.
sometimes it's not necessarily towards advancing, climate solutions. Sometimes it's helping a
Mhm.
company that's dealing with environmental violations, and
Mhm.
that's what I get paid to do, and that's what I do, and I do it
Yeah.
well. But I felt this sense of like being stuck and not being able to do stuff. And then when I started to do last summer, I then just started taking action,
Mhm.
and I divorced my actions from trying to have this big grandiose impact. It
Mhm.
was more of like, hey, you know what? Even if I do little things, and if it only impacts, one of my 3 kids, then it's a worthwhile action.
Mhm.
And so very literally, we have a little backyard. It's tiny. I went with my youngest son, who's 5 years old, and we just went to like a local seed bank,
Mhm.
and we picked up some local pollinator friendly plants,
Mhm.
and planted them, and then we planted some seeds. And in that action, I got to tell you, Heidi, um, I felt really connected to like a greater thing. I don't know
Mhm.
how to explain it. Just like I was actually doing something, but it was only in the little corner that I occupied,
Mhm.
and that helped me kind of get out of this despair that like there's nothing that I can't do anything. It's like, no, well, no, all right, I can do something, and maybe it's just in my little corner here, and that's okay.
Mhm. Yeah. I mean, I think that's a really great point. Like you say, you occupy a little corner. And you could say that you could focus on the fact that the corner is little, or you could focus on the fact that you occupy that corner and can do something, right? Like it's like we all occupy little corners, and together the little corners kind of become this whole big thing. And like if we do focus on the kind of grander scheme of things, which we do have to focus on, but if we focus on that too much, like I mean, I catch myself doing it. It's like, girl, you can only chew so much. Don't bite off more than you could chew. Like it's I can only do what I as a full-time college student am capable of doing with my time outside of classes, which is, having conversations with people. And sometimes to me that feels like I'm not doing enough, but to me it's like also it's better than nothing. So,
Yeah. Before we continue, I want to take a quick moment for those of you listening who might be thinking, I want to work in this space, but I don't know where to start. If that's you, I created something called the Green Pivot Map, a simple 90-day framework to help you clarify direction, translate your existing skills, and take strategic action toward environmental or climate work. It's not about going back to school or starting over, it's about positioning. If you'd like a copy, just message me Pivot on LinkedIn or shoot me an email at josealmanzaresq.com. Or you can also check the link in the show notes. All right, let's get back to the conversation. So shifting back, I should say, to careers and things looking, in the future,
mhm,
and not certainly to make you the spokesperson for a whole generation, but as my first, Gen Z guest, I'm going to give you the honor of at least speaking from the experience and the people that you're connecting with,
Mhm.
m- what's what are the discussions about with respect to the job market and particularly environmental or climate based careers? Like, what are you hearing out there?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I, again, can't speak on behalf of a whole generation because I'm just limited to me and my people that I associate myself with every day.
Hmm.
But, from what I read, and honestly, we were having this discussion earlier, I think, like, the generation that I am in is shifting because, obviously, we're in a different economic climate than previous generations were in. There's a lot more information that's constantly being perpetuated. Algorithms are always like, accelerating, it feels like. And so with all of that context, I think the shift that I've heard talked about the most, whether for good or for worse, is this idea that we have to be more audacious, have more audacity,
Hmm.
care less about what other people think, kind of preserve ourself because it's so hard to do that with everything going on these days, and then just keep going in the sense of I think, not to say other generations had this wrong, but I think we're doing a better job of realizing our boundaries. Like it's like we might be called lazy for that, I think. But I certainly feel like I aspire to land myself in a position where I can respect my own boundaries, even though I tend to be a people pleaser. Not to go off on that tangent, but I think that's a shift that I observe recently. Yeah.
And in terms of you know w- in terms of maybe 10 years from now, you're let's take it back, maybe not 10 years from now, but for people that are thinking, maybe in your place in college, and they're
Mhm.
thinking about 4 or 5 years from now, what they're going to be doing with respect to setting themselves up to have the best chances at having a meaningful career, whether it's
Mhm.
environmental or otherwise. Do you have any like advice for them? Like, how can they best prepare themselves? Maybe somebody that has never even heard of LinkedIn or doesn't even have an
Yes.
online presence. Like, what advice would you give them?
I The simple answer is do what you gotta do. Like, we need to be able to provide for ourselves. Like, at this time, if like I know people that feel guilty in the environmental space for selling out and going into typically like, not to say all consulting is very corporate, but they'll go to a corporate job and then feel like I'm selling out. I'm not doing what I intended to do, which was change the world for the better. And I'm like, well, you're surviving yourself so that you can continue to contribute positively to the world in other ways. So, like, I think that's an unfortunate, um, trade-off that's been happening. So if you're in a position of, like, you know, fighting between activism and also feeding yourself, like, I would personally say feed yourself first, and take care of yourself. That's my first and foremost advice. My second advice is in a day of social media, it's scary, but you gotta put yourself out there, I think. I think I've gotten to this point in my life just because I got past my fears, which is still there. Like, I still have anxiety putting my face out there and my random thoughts out onto the internet for scrutiny. Um, hi. But yeah, like, I mean, it's scary, but I think the motto that I've come to live my life with is I'm going to be judged no matter what I do. I might as well be judged for just living what I wanna do.
So
Um,
when you say put
yeah.
yourself out there, because
Mhm.
I can't, and maybe there's a movement to shift away from certain the larger social media platforms,
Mhm.
maybe, and you could speak, but I don't know if
Yeah.
people are maybe moving away. I think Facebook has become like kind of not a thing that Gen Z really messes with too much. I'm imagining this TikTok and Reddit and
Mhm, mhm.
Substack. I don't know where you guys are congregating, but when you say put yourself out there, like, what do you mean?
Yes. yeah, let me define that a little bit more. Putting yourself out there to me means, like, um, I mean, for me, it's been having some presence on social media, like, just like, I am pretty active on LinkedIn, which is somewhat unusual, but I found LinkedIn for me was helpful because it was people that were career-oriented and also mission-oriented,
Mm,
um, but even that in itself, that obviously not everybody's on LinkedIn, and that, I would end up speaking within a bit of a bubble if I just limited myself to that platform. So I have been, also developing other projects unrelated to the podcast on platforms like Instagram, and it's terrifying to be judged by strangers, but also I think right now that in a world where, like, algorithms and engagement is prioritized, like, to be able to develop the skill where you can, speak to some sort of audience is impressive to people that will put you in the right rooms at the right
mm.
time. Like, if for me, I don't think I would have gotten into half of the places that I've been to, like, even my school, like, if I had not had the audacity or the lack of giving a shit, if you would excuse my language, to put myself on social media, yeah.
Would you, um, do you think that it's important for people to have a professional online presence, or,
Mm.
purely a, you know, personal online presence, or it should be a mixture of the both, or you should keep both kind of separate and quarantined from each other?
That's a good question. I think to each their own. For me, they meld together, um, quite seamlessly and not with intention, sometimes with intention. It's like I think if I were to share my quote unquote professional life, I also have to insert my own personality and my own values into it. Um, I have to, I'm still myself at the end of the day, and that's gonna come through no matter what I do. Um, and I think that that in itself is valuable. I will also say this isn't for everybody, like, not to say you have to put yourself on social media. I just think that if you're letting your own fears get in your way and you have an interest in it, don't let that fear get in your way, and just do it, 'cause so many doors have opened up for me just because I got over my fear of putting myself out there. Yeah.
Yeah, and you bring up an interesting point, which, and I forget the term for this. It might be spotlight syndrome or something like that, where people
Mhm.
think that others, like, everything they do, that people are like really paying
Yeah.
attention to them, and like
Mhm.
like n- I hate to say this bluntly, and I'm not targeting this towards you, just
No,
generally,
no, yes, yeah.
like nobody really cares what you're
No,
doing.
no, 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 they don't, and that's liberating. That's liberating. Yeah.
It 100 I mean, once you get over the fact that, 1, it's not about you, and
Mhm.
2, people have their own lives and their own stuff, and, like, they're scrolling on their phone and they see that you, unless you put something that's, like, completely, like, outlandish and, like,
Yeah, yeah,
graphic
for sure.
or morose or something, for the most part, like, people are scrolling, it's like, they either get, "Oh, Heidi, like, is doing something cool," like, they'll like it, or if it's really
Yeah.
engaging, they'll, like, read it or they'll watch
Mhm.
it. For the most part, people are scrolling and they don't care.
Yeah, and it's more so, like, I less focus on the people that don't care or actively against what I do, and more so the people that do end up caring. Like, if you
Mm,
stop yourself from, you know, doing that just because of people that don't care, you're never gonna reach the people that do care about these things and might be moved to action by what, you have to say, is my way of thinking about it.
have you had
Yeah.
people, give you kind of unwanted negative feedback on social, or
Yeah,
on some
yeah.
of the platforms?
I mean, even like, and not to do identity politics, but like, I'm an Asian teenage girl.
Mhm.
There, even that in itself, I've gotten weird comments about that is wholly unrelated to my work. And
Mm,
then there will be the skeptics of climate or the skeptics of, just anything that, is politically what I have shared.
yeah.
And, that's going to be there. And that's part of the discourse. And that's part of life, unfortunately. But, I don't let that stop me. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's, I can only see the world through the lens of my eyes, but I
Mhm.
can also imagine that being a young like you said, a young woman from a diverse background speaking about an issue that is oddly enough, I don't know if you knew this, but climate change is the most politically
Yeah.
polarizing issue, even more so than
Mhm.
like abortion and other like literally
Yeah,
climate change is
yeah.
the thing, which is really weird to think about. So I can imagine that you definitely get every once in a while people out there that just are completely misaligned with what you're trying to say,
Mhm.
and to your point, I think that's a healthy approach. It's like, hey, to each their opinion. I don't need to listen to that one.
Mhm.
um for young professionals who perhaps want to become or enter kind of into the environmental space, or college students who want to have an interest in environmental but maybe feel that they're not STEM oriented, because I have a
Mhm.
feeling that there's this misconception that to be interested in environmental issues, you need to be like a science or math oriented
Mhm.
person. And I think, and I'll be the first to say that's an outright misconception and a lie.
Yes.
What kind of what words of encouragement would you give to people who want to not necessarily follow in your footsteps, but
Mhm.
like want to get into the space and do more for the environment?
Mhm. Yeah. I mean, for sure, do not follow in my footsteps, follow in your own footsteps, please. Like, I think, like, yeah, my advice is just please follow your own path that you yourself want, I think, because like, if you don't, then the world is missing out on you.
Mm,
And you're like there's always like, I don't wanna preach because I don't think everybody should listen to what everybody else is doing, they should listen to themselves first and foremost. Like, I would say talk to people and then form your own opinions. So,
mm,
like, my podcast began because I was like, "Okay, I have this thing that I want to do, I don't know how to do it, I wanna see how other people are doing it, and then take what I want from that." And so, like, you if like we have the internet now for better or for worse. In terms of better, you can reach out to anybody. Like you might get rejected from people and you might have people who ignore you or people that are like what the fuck are you doing? Um but then there are going to be people that don't say, "Yeah, I can give you 15 minutes of my time and share with you, how to break into the environmental space." Like, my best advice for breaking into the environmental space is just to talk to people. Yeah, talk
mm.
to people that are doing things that you find interesting and kind of pick their brains. Like, for me, it started with my professor, like, in my high school class. And then it was, talking to people that I just scrolled on LinkedIn and was like, "You're doing cool things. I admire that. I wanna learn from you." Yeah.
So let's workshop that a little bit. Not
Mhm.
not to kind of go too deep in a rabbit hole, but and by the way, the advice that you're giving is the same advice that I give to people, which is
Mhm.
find out who's out there doing the stuff that you want to do, and then kind of in a non creepy way do some outreach to see if you could get informational interviews.
Mhm.
9 times out of 10, they'll probably ignore you. The email might go to spam, or they just might not respond to you, and that's
Mhm.
fine. You don't need 9 out of 10 to get back to you. All you need is really one.
Mhm. Yeah.
You just need a few ones. And so how would you, let's say that today you decided you were interested in, restoration of coral reefs off the coast of Central America.
Mhm.
Let's say that that was a thing.
Yeah.
And you wanted that to be your career, whether it was working in policy or practical solutions, or
Mhm.
how would you go about exploring that path?
Mhm. I mean, I would first off do it with intention, like in the sense that I really want to study coral reefs off the coast of what do we say, Central
Central America.
America, right? Okay, I really want to do that. I'm genuinely interested in this, and I'm genuinely interested in what people have to say that are already doing this work that I'm genuinely interested in, because like I know so many advice gurus about like networking, like, and it just seems so dehumanizing. Like networking is really just person talking to another person, a
Mhm.
person with a story of their own talking to another person with their story and trying to like, mix the two. So like just I think be genuine and really express interest. Like for me, when I first started writing cold emails, it was like what really got responses back from people was when I got really into depth about their work.
Mm.
Like I had responses from um, like, I think my first email that led to an interview for this podcast was the deputy director of earth sciences at NASA, and that happened before I knew he was the deputy director of NASA. Like, I didn't let that be what wanted me to have a conversation with him. It was his paper that he had written recently, and I was like,
Mm.
"This paper is fascinating," and I just, like, yapped about how much I found that paper fascinating, and he got back to me within, the next couple hours, and we had the conversation the next day. So, like, genuinely just be yourself and not, like, be yourself, but, like, just yourself is valuable
I'm gonna
and be
say some
interested. Yeah.
I'm gonna say something right there that's actually super important and a great
Mhm.
piece of advice. Um, Figure out who the people are. So you found
Yes.
this person, you saw that they had written an awesome article or a piece that
Mhm.
resonated with you. It was genuinely interesting to you.
Right.
And then you reached out to them and you said, "Hey, guy, you wrote this awesome article. I want to speak with you about it."
Mhm.
That will get a response, I think 50% of the time.
Mm.
If somebody found an article of mine, and I'm giving people out here a playbook as to how to get to the top of my DMs in my inbox. But if you found an article, and I have a bunch of published articles out there through the different bar associations and different things I've published, find an article and you say, Jose, you wrote this thing in 2023 on on mindfulness and the environmental justice movement. It really resonated with me. Can I speak with you for 15, 20 minutes?
Mhm.
Yes. You're gassing me up, making me feel good, and you're showing a genuine interest.
Mhm.
That's the playbook right there.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, like, interest in itself is valuable to people because sometimes it's rare these days. Like, if you think about networking as just LinkedIn connections, you're not gonna get anywhere because
Mhm.
it seems so purely transactional in that way, when on the other hand, it can become transactional in the sense that you just connect on a human level of over, like, shared interest. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, and you and I, we've had we've never met in person, but we've had
Mhm.
several conversations, and all our conversations are based in shared interest and our share desire to make, to spread a message that people
Mhm.
can find their own place in trying to make the world a better place. So I've always appreciated that about kind of our relationship over the last few years, and that,
Mhm.
and I'm really excited to see where you're going to be going at UPenn, and your double unemployment major.
Yes.
No, but
Thank you.
oh, I'm super excited for you. I'm gonna encourage everyone to check out Heidi on LinkedIn. What's your handle on Instagram?
Oh, Instagram? It's a separate, I guess you could say, venture, um, that,
Maybe I'll put it in the
honestly.
show notes. I'll put it in the show.
Yeah, yeah, you can put it in the show notes. It's at journaling.heidi, my first name.
Got it.
Yeah, and, that's related to my, like, hobbies, like, I do junk journaling, it's like recycling
I
receipts or packaging, right? And that's my
I
hobby, and I
love it.
document that, right?
I love it.
Yeah, and, it's like stuff like that. It's more of, like, my personality coming through,
Good.
yeah, versus, you can check out my LinkedIn. My LinkedIn is more environmentally focused, it's more professional. Yeah, and that's just you can look up Heidi Pan and then 1.5 Degrees podcast, and you should find something. Yeah.
And the podcast, is it exclusively on YouTube?
Right now, it's exclusively on YouTube, just because I like the having the face and,
Yeah.
seeing that kind of interaction take place. Hopefully, we'll be able to branch off into platforms like Spotify and iTunes or wherever you listen in sometime in the future. Look out for that later this year.
Awesome, awesome. Well, Heidi, before we go, any like final words of advice that you would want to give to anyone who's interested in this space?
Just do it. Just take the first step, and then the steps after that will become visible to you. Like, just yeah, just do it. Yeah. That's my advice.
And that's my dog losing its shit in the background because someone rung my bell. But we'll leave on that note. Heidi, thank you so much. Everyone, look for Heidi on LinkedIn. Heidi Pan, 1.5 Degrees podcast. Heidi, always a pleasure and really a pleasure to have you. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you so much, Jose. Take care.
You too. Thanks for listening to the Green Collar Careers podcast. If you're realizing that your current work no longer fits, or you're feeling pulled toward environmental or climate work, but aren't sure how to make the transition, you're exactly who this podcast is for. I've developed a simple framework called the Green Pivot Map. It's designed to help professionals reposition their existing skills and take intentional steps into environmental careers over the first 90 days. You can get a copy by messaging me Pivot on LinkedIn or visiting my website, josealmanzaresq.com, or you can use the link in the show notes. If this episode was helpful, please subscribe, leave a rating, and share it with someone else who's trying to build a more purpose-driven career. I'm Jose Almanzar. Thank you so much for listening. This is Green Collar Careers.